Welcome to AWANA Online. Today, we talk about avoiding temptation. I can imagine with you being quarantined to your house, all the different events happening all around you or not happening, you and I are faced with some major temptation. Like, imagine this. You're walking through your kitchen. Your mom, your dad said, no more brownies, no more cookies until after we eat dinner. There they are on your left. The freshly baked cookies. You can taste them in the air. What do? Or you're not supposed to have candy until after 11. You just had breakfast, you want a little more snack, and there they are, the Reese's Cups or the Skittles. What do? We're gonna play a game called Would You Rather. Sit back, relax, and get ready. Here we go.
Welcome to Would You Rather with Shasta, the master of disaster. I got some questions for you boys and girls. I'm so excited that you decided to join me here on Would You Rather, a game show for boys and girls, moms and dads, children of all ages. It's an amazing event because we're asking you, would you rather? Here are the ground rules today. If you'd rather choice A, jump over to choice A. If you'd rather choice B, come on over here to choice B. You're going to be given two choices, and it's up to you. Which would you rather? Are you ready for Would You Rather? So our first question, would you rather be covered in fur or covered in scales? Covered in fur, covered in scales. Question number 2, would you rather not be able to speak or not be able to read? Not be able to speak, not be able to read. Your question. I was thinking, it'd be a lot easier to control temptation if I couldn't speak. Gotta think about that. Here's Shasta back with number 3. Would you rather get out of jail free card or a key to unlock any door? Thinking about that again is, if I'm on jail, I must have fallen to temptation. And a key to unlock any door opens up a whole lot of temptation. Alright, which did you choose? Get out of jail free or a key to unlock any door? Question number 4. Would you rather be able to talk to animals or touch a book and know all the information? Talk to animals or touch and know a book's information. Here's number 5. Never be angry or never say a harsh word. Which would you rather? Never be angry or say a harsh word? Here's the next one. Would you rather be famous or make other people famous? Be famous or make others famous? Here's one for it. Would you rather serve people or be served? That's a tough one. Sitting back in my lawn chair, getting a nice tan, eating my grapes. Someone serving them to me, eating ice cream. Be served or serve others. Serve others or be served. Your choice. Here's our next one. Would you rather have 2 mouths or 4 hands? Imagine how much you could do all day long. You could be doing work over here, playing video games with this one. Work, video games, work, video games. Which would you rather? Here's the next one. Would you rather be able to only eat ice cream or your favorite food, one of your favorite foods for your entire life? Which would you rather? Boys and girls, thank you so much for playing Would You Rather? It's Shasta, and he's out making a little bit of a disaster.
Welcome back. Today we talk about avoiding temptation. It's the 5th part of our prayer that Jesus prayed, showing the disciples how to pray. In Matthew chapter number 6, verse number 13, it says this, "And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Let me ask you a big question. How many of you have ever been tempted? Let me give you 10 seconds to think about the last time you were tempted and what it was. Hey, thanks for coming back with us. I'm so excited to talk about avoiding temptation tonight because God is asking you and I to pray and ask Him to help us avoid temptation. Temptation is the devil's trap, and he tries to trap us in many different ways. Today, Peyton, she's here with us to introduce us to the beginning of our lesson. Let's welcome Peyton on the screen.
It's me, Peyton, and it's time to get back into our series called Teach Us to Pray. Oh look, an apple. I wonder who left it here. I better pick it up.
Haha, I caught you in my trap.
Why did you do that?
You took the bait and now you're in my trap.
Ha ha, now let me out of here. I have a video to shoot.
Say please.
Let me out of here now!
Uh-oh.
I can't believe my brother did that to me. But it kind of reminds me of the part of the Lord's Prayer that we are learning about today.
And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil.
Remember how my brother got me into that trap? He said that apple was bait. Well, temptation is the bait for the trap of sin. The devil lays temptation all around us to make us fall into the trap of sin.
Well, I'm going to tell you right now, that devil, he is a bad, bad dude. He's downright naughty.
He sure is. The devil is the enemy of our souls. He wants us to sin more than anything else. That's why we should pray every single day for God to help us not to fall into the trap of sin. There are a lot of things Satan tries to tempt us with. Have you ever been to the store and you didn't have enough money to buy a piece of candy? Sometimes Satan puts temptation in front of us to try and make us steal things that don't belong to us. Or have you ever been over at a friend's house for a slumber party? Their parents are in bed and somebody starts to play a movie that you know you're not supposed to see. You're tempted to watch it, but it's totally not good for you. Or you're in class trying to take a test and you're sitting by the smartest girl in class. It wouldn't take anything just to lean over and look at her answers. Well, that's the devil trying to set out a trap of temptation for us to cheat on that test. That is temptation. We must pray that God would help us stay away from Satan's traps. If we ask, He will deliver us from temptation and from evil. Well, it's time for you to get into your lesson today as you learn about the Lord's Prayer and avoiding temptation. This is Peyton reminding you, you can pray every single day. See ya!
Temptation's real, right? I mean, talking harshly to somebody, giving a dirty look, maybe eating more than I needed to eat. Maybe for you, you're really tempted to tell a lie or twist the truth just a little bit. Temptation happens to every one of us. What we do with it is whether we respond right to God or sin towards God. It's our choice. I love how Peyton shared with us how you and I can pray every single day, even every moment of our day, and ask God to help us avoid temptation. Let's go over our Bible verse, Matthew chapter 6, verse number 13, one more time. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. How many of you want to avoid the devil's trap? If you want to avoid it, give me a thumbs up. None of us want to be tempted. None of us want to fall into a trap. I mean, there's lots of traps out there. There's a mouse trap. There's a fly trap. There's even a really super cool plant named a Venus flytrap. My son had one of those, and every day we had to feed that trap to give it the nourishment that it needed. There's traps, and the devil's got one for you and for me. But before we go on any further, we've got our friend Big Ray here to introduce us to What You Gotta Know.
What you gotta know? What you gotta know? What you gotta know? What you gotta know?
Hey there, kids. I'm Big Ray, and I'm here to tell you what you gotta know. Today, we are learning about how to handle temptation. So anytime today you hear somebody ask you what you gotta know, you tell them, I need God's help to avoid temptation. Satan tries to trick you by telling you all sorts of stuff about sin. He tells you stuff like, it'll be fun, it won't hurt you, God won't mind. But that guy lies more than Pinocchio. He, in fact, is the father of lies. Don't you listen to a word he says. Instead, you gotta trust God and follow him. Run from temptation. You'll be a lot better off. So anytime today you hear somebody ask you what you gotta know, you tell them, I need God's help to avoid temptation. And that right there is what you gotta know. This is Big Ray, and I'll catch you on the flip side.
What you gotta know?
You and I need God's help every single day to avoid temptation. Jesus even was tempted by the devil. The devil tempted him 3 times. We talked about that just a couple weeks ago. In today's story, we're going to talk about how you and I need God's help to avoid temptation. You know, I can imagine during this quarantine and needing to stay home, you and I have been tempted in a lot of different ways. Sometimes small and sometimes big. Maybe you've been tempted to either sit on the couch and play a little bit longer video game or take out the trash. Maybe you were tempted when you saw that piece of trash laying on the floor and you could pick it up or you could leave it there for someone else to take care of. Maybe you know your job is to go outside and clean up the dog poop all over the lawn. And when your dad asked, hey, did you clean up? You were tempted to either tell the truth or tell a lie. What did you do in that moment? You know, even our dog Romeo, he's tempted. He's tempted to chew on humans or tempted to chew on his toys. He'd much rather chew on humans, and it's super hard for him. I even see him struggle with making the right choice. Sometimes you and I struggle with making the right choice. In today's Bible story, we zoom all the way back in time to when everything first began. Boys and girls, welcome with me to the Garden of Eden. At the very beginning of time, when God had just created everything, he had spent 6 days forming and making everything, and he said, it is good. Man and woman were there in the garden. He had warned Adam not to eat of anything from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, but he could eat everything else in the garden. I mean, imagine all the wonderful things he could eat. Bananas, apples, and blueberries, and grapes, and all kinds of other wonderful things to eat, just not of the one tree of the knowledge of good and evil. One day, Satan came along, twisted himself up around the tree in the form of a serpent. And there was Eve, minding her own business. And then the snake began to talk to Eve and asked her to take a bite of the fruit from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. He tricked her and tempted her, and she took a bite of the fruit. She turned to Adam and asked Adam to take a bite. He picked it up and he saw with his eyes, he could smell with his nose that it smelled and looked so good. He took a bite and the juices dripped down off of his chin, and in that moment, they knew they had sinned. They knew they broke God's law, and from that moment forward, man had sin passed down from human to human until Jesus came and rescued us from that sin. You know, just like Adam and Eve were tempted to sin, God recorded Bible verses to help you and I understand how to avoid Satan's trap of sin. Because just like he came to Adam and Eve in the garden, he comes to you and he comes to me, and he tempts us, he traps us into sin. Jesus had a brother. His name was James. James, he wrote this to us. When a person is tempted, they shouldn't say, God is tempting me. God cannot be tempted with evil, and he doesn't tempt anyone. You know, sometimes when we're tempted, one of the first things we say in our mind is we run to point our fingers at God. If God would have given me a different parent, if God would have given me a different brother or sister, if God would have put me in a different family, if God wouldn't put me in this quarantine, I would do this different. You know, it's not God's fault, and we can't blame God for any of the things that are going on. God is perfect in every way. Here's what he says in verse 14, because you see, Satan throws out a temptation towards us. And although Satan throws out that temptation, that trap, it's still my fault or my responsibility that I jump into it, because God gives us the strength to avoid and run from all temptation. Here's what it says in verse number 14. But each person is tempted by their own evil desires. The first thing we learn in our temptation is God isn't at fault. It's my responsibility. Number two is I have evil desires inside of me that sometimes want to be fed. You know, just like we talked a little while ago, when we're walking through the kitchen and know we're not supposed to take that cookie, and we take a bite or we think about it, that's our temptation. Maybe you'd rather play a video game or watch a TV show than do your homework or some other responsibility. Like maybe for you, you'd rather color a page than write out your math problems. Those are our evil desires tempting us to fall into Satan's trap. This third thing he says is not only is it my evil desires, but he says this, but each person is tempted by their own evil desires. These desires lead them on and drag them away. You see, here's what Satan does. He has a tackle box with lures inside of it designed just for you and me. On that tackle box, it has my name, Steve Neal, and he knows what things will pull us from where God wants us to be to where Satan wants us to be. And he throws those things out and lures them away, just like when you go fishing. You see, we put on a different bait on that fishing line. We cast it out in the water, hoping to catch just the fish that we want. We're luring the fish from where they are to where we want them to be, in our hands, on our line, and in our boat or on our land. That's what Satan does to you and to me. Let's keep reading and see what the Bible says. These desires lead them on and drag them away. When these desires are allowed to remain, they lead to sin. And when sin is allowed to remain and grow, it leads to death. God, through Jesus' brother James, is opening our eyes to how you and I can avoid temptation, to where we can recognize Satan's trap. You see, Satan sets the trap. And if we keep thinking about it and thinking about it, it stays in our brain. And when we fall to that trap, we hurt other people. In the Bible, it says it leads to death. We know that when Adam and Eve sinned, there was death brought to every single man, every single woman. And in our relationships, when we sin, we bring death to a relationship. Now we can fix it and get it back together. I remember when I was a kid, probably your age, my brother Matt and I said some harsh words to each other. And then I went off and hit him. Oh, it broke our relationship for a while, and I had to apologize, ask him to forgive me. There was another day, my brother Scott and I, something happened, and I called him a really bad name. I got in trouble by my mom and my dad. I hurt my brother's relationship. I had to apologize and ask him for his forgiveness for the things that I said to him. Maybe something right now has happened to you, and you've fallen into Satan's trap, you can do this. Ask whoever it is for their forgiveness. Confess it to God, and then move forward, staying away from that temptation. All we need to do is remember this. Every day I can pray, asking God to help me avoid temptation. Today, our bottom line is this. Ask God to help you avoid temptation. Here's what some of the things we learned about avoiding temptation. Satan, he is setting a trap. Me, Steve, is responsible to avoid the temptation, asking God for strength. Satan, he sets the trap. I have evil desires that Satan knows. I ask God for the strength to avoid the temptation. I need to know when I fall into Satan's trap, I bring death, hurt, pain to relationships. Every day, I can pray, asking God to help me avoid temptation. Boys and girls, thank you so much for joining me online, AWANA. And don't forget, Sunday, very special day. Bring your furry to online church. Take a picture and post it right here on Facebook and tag Bible Center Kids. I'll catch you next week right here, same time, same place. See you later.